All right, guys, today we're going to be talking about Unholy Death Knight in the new Midnight expansion. And I'm so excited to be talking about this with you guys. I got about 100 Discord notifications that were like, Skull, it's actually happening. We're getting an Unholy rework. So this is actually my second time recording this video because I made about an hour-long video ranting about how cool these changes are. And I'm deciding not to subject you guys to that. So I'm actually coming back and trying to cover these changes in a concise way. Now, that being said, I'm still very, very excited. Unfortunately, I'm not a very big content creator, so I did not get an alpha key. But if you want to check out some of the visuals and how this stuff looks in game, I believe that Bicep Pumps got a alpha key. So go check him out and, comment something like the Bone Man sent me. And I am going to, as soon as I get a key of some sort, I will show you all the visuals. But for now, we have the talents. And guys, they have cooked with these talents. They're so cool. First things first that we need to start before we even get into the talents, guys. It's official. They have removed wounds. Wounds are gone. And for those of you that liked the complexity of Unholy, you liked having something else to manage, don't worry, they've still got you covered. Festering Strike no longer procs wounds. It now makes it so that your next 3 to 4 Scourge Strikes are going to summon ghouls. So this is a buff on yourself rather than the individual target. And why that matters is because now you are going to be able to target swap without having to invest a bunch of resources. So this is going to make PvP, this is going to make Mythic Plus, and this is going to make Raid that has priority targets a lot smoother for Unholy. There's still something else to manage, which is really fun, but instead of a purple debuff on the target, it is going to be actually summoning more ghouls and undead. Very flavorful, great change. I'm very excited. Now, while we talk about great changes, you now have Dread Plague, which is a single target ability. It's a single target plague that you can put on a target. And this will do a bunch of damage, but it will also be now the way that you proc your Death Coil procs, your Sudden Doom procs. So this is really, really cool because now you do not have to be auto-attacking in melee range in order to proc your Death Coils. Your Death Coils will now also be summoning undead when you get the Sudden Doom procs. So you have a way that your disease and your pets interact with each other. Because before, you used to have to choose, do I want a pet build? Do I want a disease build? Now, you don't have to choose. You just get both. This is really, really cool. I think this is an excellent change design-wise because now, as you go through the tree and you take disease talents, you're also getting the value from your pets. And when you take the pet talents, you're also getting the value from your diseases. Fantastic design. I can't glaze them hard enough for this. But let's keep going because there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. So next we have Scourge Strike, which is now by default a 30-yard range. So what this means is that the only ability that you're really going to have to be in melee range for is Festering Strike in order to get the buff to be summoning more ghouls. So you can kind of weave in and out of melee as you need to. This is going to make you a lot more versatile in encounters. Really, really cool. The other thing that this is going to do is it is going to spread your Virulent Plague to a nearby enemy. On top of that, Clawing Shadows, which is this high up on the tree, awesome, is going to make it so that your Scourge Strikes chain to nearby targets. What this will do is this is going to end up spreading your plague very quickly, as well as being able to do cleave damage without standing in Death and Decay. So if you're like me and you're like, okay, this is really cool so far, but what am I going to do with all of, so I'm summoning all of these ghouls. What do I do with all of these ghouls? I have Scourge Strike that is now going to be summoning a ghoul every time I'm using it. I have my death coil procs that are going to be summoning a ghoul every time I use it. That's cool, but what else? What's the icing on the cake? I have so many ghouls, Skull. I can't hold all of my ghouls. What do I do with them? Oh my god, they have got you covered. Putrefy is a new ability in your rotation that is going to make it so that the oldest lesser ghoul, the one that is about to expire, is going to blow up for shadow damage. So instead of having a rotation built around stacking a purple debuff on people, on individuals, you are now going to have a rotation that is built around being able to do AoE damage seamlessly and summoning a bunch of undead to do it. In the first 3 rows of the talent tree, they have removed wounds. They have created an interaction between your diseases and your pets, and they have effectively made it so that you do not need to stand in death and decay. 3 major issues solved in the first 3 rows. Blizzard, well done. Compliments to the chef. Absolute cinema. Fantastic. Now, I'm going to cover some of the other new talents and interactions for you guys, skipping over some of the talents that you're maybe familiar with already, because I do not want this to be an hour-long video as well. So some of the things that are new or interesting are that we have things like Super Strain, which, if you remember, Super Strain used to be at the very bottom of the disease build, and what it would do is it would give the target Frost Plague and Blood Plague as well, any target that's affected by your diseases. So why that was such a good ability was just, one, because it did more damage, cool, but also Frost Fever would make it so that you were generating a lot of runic power. Now they've added this by default where you can click it as you're going down the talent tree. It's really high up in the talent tree, that you are still going to have that resource generation from your diseases. So anyone who liked the disease playstyle of putting diseases on the target, getting resources from them, spreading those diseases, this is going to be a lot more seamless. You're still going to have that resource generation. It's going to feel really good. Another cool talent that they've added is Rapid Variant. When an enemy afflicted by your Dread Plague dies, it erupts and infects the enemy with the lowest health remaining with your plagues. So what this will do is make it so that when you go into a pack and you use Outbreak and apply your Dread Plague to a priority target in the pack of mobs, you no longer are going to have to reapply your disease when that target dies. It is just going to shift that disease over to another target. This is really nice because you're not going to have to be spamming Outbreak as you guys are killing mobs. Something that's very frustrating for a lot of people with Unholy right now is there's a very large ramp, and then if targets die really fast, you don't get value. So now it's just going to be shifting over that Dread Plague to the next lowest health enemy, and it's just going to keep doing that. Very cool. I've seen videos of this. It's very, very smooth, and it eliminates you from having to actually press Outbreak a bunch of times. You're going to be spreading your diseases at the same time as summoning ghouls with Scourge Strike. Some of the other changes that we have are Reaping no longer affects your Soul Reaper. This is because Soul Reaper has been removed, so you can go ahead and take that off your bars along with Death and Decay. One of the other things that I want to talk about with you guys are some of the choices that we get to make. This tree has a ton of very interesting choices that we can make about how we are going to play our game. So we still have Plague Mastery and Grave Mastery, which lets you dip into either a more disease damaging build or a minion damaging build. But as we get lower in the tree, you're going to see that we still get value from both of them. They did it in a really cool way. I'll explain it when we get there. Just spoiler. Now, we also have choices like your lesser ghouls can last longer, or your lesser ghouls can do more damage. This helps you choose between more of a burst build or more of a sustain build. So we're getting some choices like that. Another one is we can dip into more single target damage, which is really nice. We have talents like Unholy Devotion, which make it so that Putrefy now decays the lesser ghoul over 4 seconds, causing it to go into a frenzy, increasing their attack speed and damage by 150% until they explode. This is going to be a single target buff, but what's really cool about the way that they designed this, and they were very intentional with the way that they designed some of these talents, in that it does not just increase the damage of your ghouls, it is going to also increase their attack speed. And when we have other talents like Infected Claws, which make it so that your pets are going to be applying a stacking shadow debuff to the target, increased attack speed means that they will stack this faster and stack it higher. So there's really cool synergy between the talents that if you want to pick up more single target damage, you can do something like take Unholy Devotion and Infected Claws, and now all of a sudden your pets are shredding in single target. Very cool changes, but we still have AoE options for our pets as well. So besides Putrefy, which already does AoE shadow damage, we also have Dark Transformation, which will now summon your Magus of the Dead, as well as you have a talent to make those Magus cleave. And if you're playing right now this season, you know that these guys truck. So we have options here where we can choose between single target pet options as well as AoE pet options. And I really think that's cool because before you kind of had to pick and choose between, do I want a single target focus build? Do I want an AoE build? And there was not really a good mix. So this should be a lot easier for them to tune. This should be a lot easier for you to make those decisions and not lose a ton of value one way or the other. Now, some really, really neat talents that we have on the disease side of the tree are Blight Burst. So Blight Burst is going to make it so that the eruption effect of Putrefy consumes damage from the plagues and does it instantly. Now, again, here we have some synergy between summoning the ghouls and doing disease damage. So you can kind of do some immediate damage from your diseases by blowing up a ghoul. I love that they designed this in a way where you have the disease build and the pet build working together. So even though you're going down the disease side of the tree, you still really want to be summoning those pets. It doesn't take away from the core rotation. Blightfall, badass name by the way, increases your disease damage. So as you can see, we're just going down the disease side of the tree here. Scourging makes it so that your Scourge Strike now instead causes your plagues to erupt for the damage they would inflict over 3 seconds at 35% effectiveness. So some extra instant damage for our diseases. Last but not least, we have Festering Scythe. Festering Scythe is very, very cool because if you were familiar with it before, what it would do is it would apply wounds in AoE. Now what it's going to do is it's going to make it so that all of your diseases start ticking a lot faster on the targets in front of you. So this is going to do a lot more damage with your diseases, but it is also going to make it so that your Dread Plague is going to be ticking faster. And when your Dread Plague is ticking faster, you're going to get more Sudden Doom Death Coil procs. And when you get more Sudden Doom Death Coil procs, you're going to be getting more Lesser Ghouls. When you get more Lesser Ghouls, you're going to be blowing up more Lesser Ghouls, and you're going to be doing more disease damage by blowing them up. And oh my god, it all works together. It all synergizes so well, because if you're taking all of these disease talents, you're still getting so much value out of the pets. And I think that's so cool, because before you would go down the disease path and you were missing half of the flavor of being Unholy Death Knight. Now let's talk a little bit about the pet side of the tree. So on the pet side of the tree, we now have Army of the Dead, which is a 1.5 minute cooldown now, which summons a legion of 8 lesser ghouls. They've gotten rid of Unholy Assault because you no longer need to be stacking wounds. You can just summon this army on a 1.5 minute cooldown and they are going to start shredding your enemies. We have Commander of the Dead, which you guys may already know from Death Knight today, but this is just going to increase the damage of all your pets. The final node is a choice node between Raise Abomination and Summon Gargoyle. Is Gargoyle back? It might be. So, Raise Abomination is now going to summon 4 lesser ghouls instead of the full 8, but I still think this is really cool because before you used to summon Raise Abomination, and you would miss out on summoning all of the undead, which from a flavor standpoint, class fantasy standpoint, kind of sucked because you want to be summoning all these undead when you're casting something like Army of the Dead, not just one thing. So now you're going to be summoning a bunch of them still, and you get this abomination. And this abomination is going to be doing disease damage, plague damage, as well as causing anyone that's in that disease cloud to take 20% increased damage from your minions. So very, very cool. This seems like more of the AoE option because it is putting this AoE cloud around that does plague damage, as well as increasing damage from your minions. So when you're using things like Putrefy, they're going to blow up and take more damage from your AoE as well. We also have Summon Gargoyle, and that is going to make it so that a Gargoyle shows up and does exactly what Gargoyle was meant to do, which is slam a target, and it is going to do 1% increased damage for every 1 runic power you spend. So very, very, very cool changes to this side of the tree. We still have some synergy here. If you take Raise Abomination, you still have some synergy with your diseases. I'm not quite sure how we can fill out the tree yet. I haven't actually messed with trying to fill it out yet, but if you were able to take Raise Abomination as well as some of these disease stuff, like Blightfall, your Raise Abomination's disease cloud would be doing more damage. So again, there is that synergy between the builds. In the middle here, we have Blighted, which is Scourge Strike deals in critical strike damage, Scourge Strike critical strikes cause your diseases to inflict their damage at 50% effectiveness instead. It's just a damage talent. This one's not that interesting. Ancient Runes. This one is it's Festermite. It's just Festermite. We don't have wounds anymore to pop to get Festermite stacks, so now it is just when you are spending runes. Cool. They changed the name. It no longer functions with wounds, but we still have it. Unholy Aura. This one is whenever you have a ghoul under your command, it is going to give you some mastery, and whenever you blow up a ghoul, it's going to give you some haste. Very nice. You like both of those stats. It's great. Reanimation. This one used to be your Unholy Assault. Unholy Assault is no longer. So now when you putrefy a lesser ghoul, it has a 100% chance, which I think is crazy. Blizzard, don't nerf us. I think that's really cool. But it has a 100% chance to reanimate of a Magus of the Dead, which is going to hurl frost bolts and shadow bolts at your foes for 15 seconds, which is a pretty long time. Additionally, Magus of the Dead spells deal 25% increased damage. This is really, really cool because whenever you're blowing up a ghoul, you're going to be summoning a Magus when that ghoul dies. So just getting more and more undead value, and depending on how quick you're getting these out, I mean, we have 2 charges on a 15-second recharge, plus your Magus that you're summoning with your Dark Transformation. You might get a bunch of these little mages going, these little skeleton guys. I think that's really neat. Now we're going to talk about the Apex talents. So the Apex talents are going to be 3 new talents that every spec is going to have, and these 3 talents right here, they said that they did it in a way where the first talent was going to be the most impactful, and as you went down, it was going to be an upgrade, but it wasn't going to be as impactful as investing that first talent point. And they want to do that so you have the freedom to play around in the regular tree. So The first one that you have is Forbidden Knowledge. Forbidden Knowledge makes it so that your Army of the Dead is going to upgrade your Death Coil and your Epidemic. Your Death Coil is now going to be called Necrotic Coil, and it is going to be a vortex of necrotic energy and bone, dealing physical damage up to 3 foes, so it's going to cleave, and it is going to do shadow damage to all of those foes that it hits. This is very cool for a couple reasons. One, it's going to make your Death Coil cleave, which is awesome. This animation is really cool. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going and checking out someone that has the alpha key. It looks very, very cool. It's kind of the Maldraxxus green. If you guys played Shadowlands, it looks neat. I like it. This also, because it does physical damage and shadow damage, in case you didn't know, armor makes people take less physical damage, and magic goes straight through armor, so it cuts straight through. There are some targets that are going to have physical damage mitigation like armor, and there's some targets that are going to have magic damage mitigation. So this doing both physical and shadow damage during your burst of your Army of the Dead is really cool, because it's going to make sure you're still hitting that target. I think that's really, really good design. We don't really have anything like that in PvP. If you guys were around during Retpocalypse, Retribution Paladin had an ability called a type of damage called Holy Strike that dealt holy and physical damage, and they were slamming everybody. So I'm very excited that we're getting this. Also, we have Graveyard, which is going to essentially just going to do extra shadow damage to enemies nearby the targets that you're popping Epidemic on. So it's just going to kind of be it's just extra shadow damage. It's still cool. It looks very cool. It's a great talent. Now, the upgrades for it are Army of the Dead is going to grant 20 runic power and causes your next Scourge Strike to summon a lesser ghoul. Neat. Forbidden Knowledge is when you putrefy a lesser ghoul or summon one with Scourge Strike, the duration of Forbidden Knowledge is increased by 1 second. So again, I like that they added stuff like this where there's still some management to Unholy. There's still you have the ghoul buff to manage, and you're able to extend your windows, some of your windows here. And I think that's nice, because Unholy is going to be very easy to pick up and play, but there's still going to be a difference between an Unholy player that has invested the time, learned their priority, and how to use their abilities versus one that hasn't. Thank you guys for sticking around and watching me rant about how cool Unholy is and how awesome these changes are. Blizzard, if you are watching this, well done. I'm so impressed with this being the first draft of changes for Unholy. I think that you've solved so many of the problems that Unholy has, but still made it interesting. And creating some of these interactions, just well done. This is one where when I saw it, I just was like, Blizzard nailed this. I said the same thing with the frost changes, and I had high standards going into this because the frost changes were so good, but man, did they make Unholy cool. It's going to be hard choosing between these specs next. I'm probably going to play both, but very, very cool. I'm excited to see what else comes. I'm excited to try this stuff out as it comes out. Hopefully we get a key of some sort soon. But again, thank you for watching, and I'll leave you with one last thing in case there's any Blizzard employees wondering about feedback on Unholy. And that final thing is, where's the pet customization, Blizzard? I'm still waiting, and each one of my Unholy videos, I am going to bring it up. Look, lesser ghoul implies the existence of a greater ghoul. And I want my greater ghoul to be customized. I want him to be sick. But that's it. This is fantastic. This is great. I'm very excited. I hope you guys are excited too. Feel free to leave a comment on anything that you guys would like me to test when I eventually get access. Anything that you guys are excited about, anything you guys are concerned about, I want to hear it all. So, yeah, thank you again for watching, and suffer well.